The World's Fair Park. If you have lived in the Knoxville area for any period of time, chances are you can think back to that first memory in the park. Whether it be for fireworks on the 4th of July, a concert in the amphitheater, or just a stroll down the Greenway, everyone has some memory related to the World's Fair Park. And for many, that memory dates back to May 1st, 1982, the opening of the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee. An opening that some remember almost didn't happen.
There was a fair amount of opposition to it because people were afraid it was going to disrupt the town and leave us with the mess and a big debt. That was the crux of it, and the Butcher brothers, the bankers, got involved in it and decided to put money and their backing into it in a big way. And it escalated from being just an exposition, which was going to be a bunch of serious scientific type meetings, to being a real World's Fair. And that's a big deal because you have to get it approved internationally. And when they got that approved, then things sort of escalated a little bit more. But the thing that really turned that around was when the editorial in the Wall Street Journal made fun of Knoxville as a site for a World's Fair and called it a scruffy little city on the Tennessee River. And that really made people angry. And after that, everything sort of pulled together behind the fair. It really was a midnight miracle. I mean, there is some footage of the fair site in February 1982, and it was just a big mud pit with a few buildings going up. And it looked like there was no earthly way they could get it done by May 1. President Reagan came and opened it, and there were fears that the traffic would just be, at a standstill. That first day of the fair was the best day to go. I went the second day, and it still was pretty slow, but it really did take off, and it was a success. If I remember correctly, I bought a season pass for $60. It wasn't, for the 82, it was probably $10 or $15. I don't remember, but it was, at the time, a little bit. How you could buy a one-day pass or a two-day pass. They had all kinds of art events, some in downtown, but mostly the fair was contained in the 70 acres of the park. And a lot of people in the community thought they were going to make a killing renting out places for people to stay. So people converted houses and apartments into housing for the people coming to the fair, and that was a disaster. People stayed one day and went on. So the fair had really good attendance and it was well received, but there was a lot of economic fallout here from people who thought they were going to make a killing on tourism, and people stayed either north or south of here, and the big audience was people going to the coast and traveling through Knoxville, which is a pretty big audience. And they had big fireworks every night. That was one of the draws. And it really was a major. It was a boomsday every night for 6 months, and that was pretty impressive. I saw more fireworks in that 6 months than I'll ever see in my life again. It was every night, and they were quite expensive. They were quite nicely done. And that got people to stay until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Every country had a space that was, if they signed to come to the fair, and they had these temporary blue pavilions. They were just metal, commercial-looking buildings, but then they put a lot of decorations on them, and they looked pretty decent. And the countries designed their own exhibits. So, I remember the Korea, Saudi Arabia, China. China was really the biggie because they did bring some really spectacular artifacts from the temple. I mean, the emperor's gravesite over there, these big clay figures, and those had never been outside of China before. And then the Peruvian pavilion had a mummy that they unwrapped. It's funny the things people remember about the fair. There was a little miniature train that went around through the fair, and it wasn't things that people but rode on. It was just a little amusement thing that went around and had this little Energy Express theme song. And later people wanted to get a copy of that, and it was quite a chore to track that down because people just didn't think about keeping stuff like that. But there's it's like the footprint of the fair is there, but a lot of what was there is gone. But it did happen in good old Knoxville in 1982.
Yes, sir, it did happen, and it will always be considered a significant turning point in the history of Knoxville.